In 1978, newly minted Hollywood royalty George Lucas met his hero, Akira Kurosawa, whose 1958 film The Hidden Fortress had inspired Star Wars. Lucas was shocked to discover that Kurosawa couldn't get a film funded, and resolved to help him produce his next project. So how did Kurosawa, who directed over 20 films with many classics listed among them, find himself languishing in obscurity? Kurosawa was equally as influential on popular American directors as art house filmmakers. Lucas was among a class of new Hollywood upstarts who idolized Kurosawa, along with Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, and Steven Spielberg. On the other end of the cinematic spectrum, independent filmmakers such as Abbas Kiarostami and Chris Marker were also fascinated by Kurosawa. This is just one way in which Kurosawa's story is one of contrasts and tensions. If you think of Kurosawa, chances are you think of samurai. He began to garner attention outside of Japan as a maker of jidaigeki, Japanese period films, and in particular the popular subgenre chanbara, aka samurai movies. After a varied early career, he embarked on a run of chanbara throughout the 1950s and 60s, often pairing with iconic Japanese actor Toshiro Mifune. This run included Rashomon, known for its innovative non-linear structure, Seven Samurai, often copied in the Western genre, Throne of Blood, a loose adaptation of Macbeth in the Edo period, and The Hidden Fortress, the film that captured the mind of a young George Lucas. But Kurosawa's most famous collaboration with Mifune created an iconic character in 1961's Yimbo. Mifune plays a ronin, a leaderless samurai with no name. He enters a small town on a whim and finds it embroiled in a gang war between two factions. Sensing an opportunity, he plays each side against each other in order to make some money. Yojimbo, meaning bodyguard, showcases all of the key qualities of Kurosawa's chanbara: a witty but remorseless, morally ambiguous protagonist, meditation on the outcomes and madness of violence, and a calm before the storm feeling that suddenly breaks in lightning-quick action. The film is mostly set on the town's main streets, where Kurosawa's precise framing helps scenes to slowly develop as we understand the characters and conflicts in greater detail. It's also an excellent example of Mifune's skill as an actor. The Ronin, sometimes called Sanjuro, became a recurring character, played by Mifune across 4 films and heavily inspiring Sergio Leone's Man with No Name. Mifune takes this purposefully mysterious figure and imbues him with personality, a twitchy, amoral, playful figure who dominates the screen in nearly every shot. It's impossible to take your eyes off him or predict what he will do next, just as the other characters in the film feel about him. Yojimbo also showcases Kurosawa's interest in Western culture. His films pull from sources as diverse as classic cowboy westerns, Shakespeare, and hard-boiled crime fiction. Yet despite this, his films are also quintessentially Japanese, imbued with the aesthetics of Japanese theatre and painting, and referencing samurai history and the shadow of nuclear conflict. High and Low, released 2 years after Yojimbo and also starring Mifune, is an amazing contrast to the chanbara classic. Half chamber piece, half sprawling crime procedural in a contemporary setting. It follows Mifune as Gondo, a stubborn company executive carefully navigating a corporate takeover, only to be shocked when his chauffeur's son is mistakenly kidnapped in place of his own. Here, the protagonist's bent towards individualism, unlike Sanjuro's often witty and engaging self-serving actions, is portrayed as a flaw with potentially deadly results.
だからしちゃいかん。こんな手が通用してたまるか。第一、警部さん、あいつはただ私に金を出させようとしてるんじゃない。私を笑い物にして、私を苦しめるだけ苦しめて楽しむ気だ。人が集めず垂らして貯めた金を譲り取るならまだいい。ただどめ捨てろという。
In the film's first half, Kurosawa efficiently assembles a potboiler with a thorny ethical dilemma at its heart. This section, confined to Gondo's house, is shot through long lenses in longer takes, lending a claustrophobic feel to the film. Gondo's house, situated on a steep hill overlooking a slum, is the high of the title. And then, in a bravura departure, Kurosawa's camera roves through the slum itself in the second half of the film, capturing the low in a series of vignettes that ratchet up the tension while retaining the precision of the first half. In Japanese, the film's original title is simply Heaven and Hell, and the slum's vivid scenes of heroin addiction and abuse show that Kurosawa's hard-nosed approach to violence extends beyond historically distant period films. After High and Low, Kurosawa and Mihune's partnership came to an end with the difficult production of Redbeard, and the commercial failure of Kurosawa's follow-up, Dodes Karden, left him in severe debt. The following year, he attempted to take his own life, marking the beginning of a decade where he found funding for his projects hard to come by. It was in this context that he met George Lucas, and they began to work on Kagemusha, a new jidaigeki that was to be Kurosawa's return to form. In Kurosawa's words, though, this was just a dress rehearsal for his masterpiece, Ran. The great lord Hideyotora is ailing and decides to cede control of his kingdom to his sons. When youngest Seburo refuses, telling his father it will be disastrous for the nation, he's banished. His predictions tragically turn true. Kurosawa's reinterpretation of King Lear was, at the time of production, the most expensive Japanese film ever made, engaging over 1,400 extras and horses for its epic battle scenes. However, the most striking element of the film is its stark contrast between slow, almost restful scenic moments and sudden, explosive bursts of violence. The film is rendered in a highly stylized, almost technicolor palette that references No theatre and Japanese traditional painting. As the land descends into violence, this palette becomes increasingly muted and the weather more disruptive, as if the elements themselves were turning against Hideyotora, just as rising winds and dust clouds foreshadow the final fight in Yimbo. It's tempting to identify Kurosawa with Hideyotora, an unpredictable and ailing strategic genius who finds his anger hard to manage. But in his final films, Kurosawa engages in a self-reflective mood, particularly in Dreams, an anthology of short stories inspired by his own dreams. In the final sequence of the film, funeral goers celebrate a long life lived well. 8 years later, Kurosawa died in his home at the age of 88, leaving behind an iconic legacy.